during the program. We're looking at some new video now on the left side of your screen of some of the security that's been going on inside of that building. As we mentioned, what was first reported was that loud shots or loud sounds were heard in the ballroom, and the president was quickly removed. We now know that those were gunshots. The president has said that the shooter is apprehended. This is video you see here of security officials moving the president out from the head table. Okay. This is the video here of the president.
It is now a crime scene. Secret Service is in custody, has the person in custody. Everything's okay. One shooter, no, we know so far.
Okay, so you could hear people coming through saying that everything's okay, but this is the initial video that we had of the president. You can see how quickly in this video his security moves in and how quickly armed security moves in, training their guns on the ballroom where there was concern that those shots may have been coming from. But as our Chris Sheridan has reported from inside the ballroom, they did not move people out. We saw that in the live pictures as this was unfolding, that the rest of the people in the ballroom stayed put, although Chris has also reported that members of Trump's cabinet who were here, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, were also removed in short order from this ballroom. What you're seeing on the right side of your screen is a very heavy police cordon that has now been put up in Washington, D.C. around the hotel where this event has been taking place. Chris, let's come back to you inside the ballroom if we could. It appears as though some people are leaving, although we have been told, and as you've been reporting, that the program and the president wants the program to continue, but this is now, I suspect, in the hands of law enforcement there.
Yeah, the program is continuing. They just announced that it will continue. There were some cheers when that occurred because there are, of course, a lot of supporters of the president here, in addition to the journalists who are here. So the program is going to continue. But many people have left at this point. Obviously, there were a lot of people who were shaken after what happened. So I think there is sort of a feeling that we need to continue, or that the journalists need to continue to honor the spirit of this event, which is to support the First Amendment of the United States, which guarantees freedom of the press. And they've just announced again that they're just about to start again. And many people are still here. I would say it's about 2/3 full. So looks like there are still many people who are here. And I see members of the White House staff who are still here as well. So not everyone from the White House has left. So we are going to see what this program will look like when it continues.
Okay, that is Chris Sheridan, Al Jazeera senior producer, reporting from inside the ballroom at the White House Correspondents Association dinner, where the president has been removed. I want to bring in Kenneth Katzman now, who's a senior fellow at the Souffin Center, and he joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Kenneth, help us understand, if you could, how significant an event like this is. We know that there's been security concerns with the president going back to his campaign, obviously. What's happening here?
Well, thank you for having me. Obviously, I'm listening to all the information coming in as you are, but this is very surprising because that's the Washington Hilton Hotel, a very large hotel right downtown D.C. there. Very heavy security presence. In fact, the people attending the dinner, I wasn't invited to the dinner, unfortunately, but many of the attendees could not even get to the building. They had to be dropped off blocks away and walk into the building because the security was so heavy. And they had to go through metal detectors and security because the president was in attendance. So that's a requirement. So I'm very surprised that anybody with a gun that's reported to be of the size of this shooter's gun was able to get even anywhere near the event. He did not get into the room. He did not get anywhere close to Mr. Trump, but he was one floor, apparently a staircase above the ballroom. And so he had gotten into the hotel. He was not outside the hotel. He was gotten into the hotel. And people in the room heard the shots. So I'm very surprised that this shooter penetrated that deeply to get so close to this event, which is crawling with security personnel.
Okay, I want to go to Darren Porcher now, who is a former NYPD lieutenant, and he is joining us from New York. And maybe you can help us out a little bit more on this investigation and how this goes now. From here, we're seeing this huge quarantine, Darren, from outside this ballroom. Now, the president says that the shooter has been apprehended, but that probably does not mean that this is the end of this investigation, does it?
No, the investigation is just beginning, and this is an aberration more so than the norm, because I've worked on many occasions on these presidential details here in the city of New York, whether it's the United Nations or in a semblance of different locations that presidents have visited New York City and provided public appearances. One of the things that will happen prior to the president coming to the location is an advance team would come and conduct an assessment. And that assessment is going to involve a very methodical check of the building in question. They're also going to work, they meaning the Secret Service officials are going to work in tandem with local law enforcement. And I give you an example. I worked in the NYPD, and when we had the General Assembly in the United Nations, it was a collaboration of members of the, I want to say law enforcement members of the State Department, members of the NYPD, members of the FBI, and members of the Secret Service. They all worked in tandem to ensure that there was coverage. The exits and the entrances, all of the floors in the building in question would have been covered with the standing presence or a physical presence of law enforcement. And it just kind of baffles me that something of this magnitude occurred here at the Hilton Hotel, because just based on the information that I'm hearing, granted, this is tertiary information, but people had to actually, attendees to this White House Correspondents Dinner were not able to come as close as they normally would have in the past as it relates to being dropped off. They had to be dropped off a block away, which leads me to believe that the security perimeter was wide and deep. There's an semblance of metal detectors that would have been at the location, and for the life of me, I can't understand how a gunman had the ability to penetrate the security in question that was at the location and enter the actual building and fire off a series of shots. So your first question to me was, where's this investigation stand? Granted, we have a person that's already in custody, but there's going to be an immense level of an investigation to find out who, in fact, the co-conspirators were. Was this a situation where somebody planted a firearm in the actual hotel prior to the president coming to the location? We don't know that, but the one thing I can guarantee you is the Secret Service is going to get to the bottom of this, and rest assured, they're going to find out how, in fact, this plot unraveled up to the point and including when the individual was taken into custody. Okay,
Darren Porcher, do stay with us while we recap this breaking news for our viewers. What you're seeing on your screen is a live shot from inside the White House Correspondents Association dinner, where just a short time ago, just about an hour ago, 5 shots were fired inside the ballroom where the U.S. president was attending the White House Correspondents Association dinner. He was quickly rushed off the stage with his wife, Melania, and with other members of the head table, including the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, a number of members of the president's cabinet, including the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, were also in attendance. This is also an event that is attended by a number of celebrities as well. The ballroom, as was reported by our senior producer, Chris Sheridan, was shut for a little bit for investigation. It has now opened, and now what you're looking at is people coming back into the ballroom. This is what it looks like outside of the hotel where this event is taking place. There is obviously a very significant police presence. Blocks around this hotel are now blocked off as the investigation gets underway, although U.S. media are reporting that the president is fine. The president himself has been posting on True Social. He says that there is a shooter in custody and that he has requested that the show goes on, although that will ultimately be up to law enforcement. This is the tweet from the U.S. president, or the True Social post, rather, I should say. Quite an evening in D.C. Secret Service and law enforcement did a fantastic job. They acted quickly and bravely. The shooter has been apprehended, and I have recommended that we let the show go on, but will entirely be guided by law enforcement. They will make a decision shortly. Regardless of that decision, the evening will be much different than planned, and we'll just plain have to do it again. Signed off by the president there. The president of the White House Correspondents Association has said that the program will continue, although, again, we don't have a timeline for that just yet. Okay, let's bring in Manuel Rapallo, who is still with us in our bureau in Washington, D.C., Manuel, because we were talking about how significant it is that the president was at this event, because this has been an event that he avoided in the past.
That's right, Riley. We'd been talking about this being a high-profile event, an event that President Trump had attended in the past, but not as president of the United States, but rather when he was seeking to one day become president of the United States, when President Obama was still in office. Right now, Riley, the question on everyone's mind, this is the Washington Hilton. This is not the first time that this event has been held at this hotel. This is the hotel where the Correspondents' Dinner is traditionally held. This is somewhere that by default becomes the most secure place in all of Washington, D.C., if not in the entire country. But again, it's a high-profile event. It's one of the most highly anticipated events of the entire year for people who live in D.C. I, of course, was not invited to that event. I was not there today. But you and I, Riley, both watching these live pictures over the course of the last hour, trying to piece together in real time what it was that prompted this evacuation. The reports of those loud bangs that we can now confirm were gunshots that took place outside of the main ballroom where the White House Correspondents' Dinner is taking place. To build on what you were saying, Riley, for those viewers who are only now catching up, those were, in fact, gunshots that were heard, those loud sounds that prompted the head table where President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump were sitting along with other invitees, other members of President Trump's cabinet who were also evacuated. We can confirm that the first couple, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump, are safe. President Trump has confirmed that himself via his Truth Social account. And we can confirm that people are not only being rushed back in, but that there is signs that the event will resume momentarily. That is President Trump's recommendation that the show go on, but he says that he will defer to law enforcement moving forward.
Yeah, but Glenn's not there anymore. Okay, let's, Manuel, I want to play this video for our viewers from inside the ballroom when this happened. This is what they're looking at on this.
Everybody's good. It is now a crime scene. Secret Service is in custody, has the person in custody. Everything's okay. One shooter, no, we know so far.
Okay, I want to bring Darren Porcher back in. He's a former NYPD lieutenant joining us from New York. And Darren, as our correspondent Manuel Rapallo was telling us, this is not the first time that this location has hosted this event. We've been hearing about all of the security that had been set up for people before they go into this ballroom. This is an event that's not just frequented by members of the press, it's frequented by celebrities, obviously members of the president's cabinet. This is a big deal. This is something that happens every year and is a big deal every year. So walk us through Or sorry, I'm gonna hold you there, Darren, for 1 second while we go back to the event and the President, Wee
So I know
Jiang,
you've
the
already seen
Correspondents
the president's
Association.
tweet. My apologies, his post on Truth Social. And law enforcement has requested that we leave the premises consistent with protocol. And he wanted to emphasize that nobody was hurt. He and the First Lady, the cabinet, everybody's safe. The president will be having a press briefing at the White House in 30 minutes. That is not a joke. And he insists that we will reschedule this event in the next 30 days. And that he wanted to do it tonight. He wanted to continue despite the news, but has to follow security protocol. I said earlier tonight that journalism is a public service because when there is an emergency, we run to the crisis, not away from it. And on a night when we are thinking about the freedoms in the First Amendment, we must also think about how fragile they are. I saw all of you reporting, and that's what we do. So, thank God everybody is safe. And thank you for coming together tonight. We will do this again. Thank you.
Okay, so that is the White House Correspondents Association President Wee Jiang, who was reading out a post on Truth Social that the president had just posted. Obviously, it's been a very emotional night for the people who are in the ballroom, and you can see that there as Ouija was speaking. The president said that law enforcement has requested that they leave the premises consistent with protocol, which we will do immediately. The president said he will be giving a press conference in 30 minutes from the White House briefing room. The First Lady, the Vice President, and the cabinet members and I are all in perfect condition, and we will be speaking to you in half an hour. So the program, although there had been optimism that it would continue throughout the evening, now appears to be over. I want to bring in Darren Porcher, who's a former NYPD lieutenant, joining us from New York. Darren, tell me about what this means, this consistent with protocol, having everybody now leave. What's the purpose in that?
Well, for starters, it baffles me that the president was considering to reconvene and continue to participate in this White House Correspondents' Dinner because it's clear that the security parameter was porous. So as it relates to a gunman coming in and firing off a series of shots, it's clear that there were voids in the security matrix. Therefore, the natural order would be to terminate the event and reconvene it at a point and at a location that best suits the security parameters that would support safety. And so President Trump is going to reconvene, or I want to say reestablish an interview in 30 minutes at the White House, which is a more stable security matrix, that we have more so guarantees that we won't have a gunman or a violent encounter that would occur, because the Secret Service has that place fortified from top to bottom. When I say that place, meaning the White House.
Okay.
The Hilton Hotel is an established that's controlled by private industry. So you're somewhat at the behest of the holdings of the private security proprietor in connection with this particular venue. And although the Secret Service and police, being local and federal, do an amazing job, we clearly saw that there was a void. So it's unfortunate. We're fortunate that the assailant was taken into custody, and we're also fortunate that no one else was hurt. but we're going to conduct something we refer to as an after-action review. And through the lens of that after-action review, we're going to find out where the weak link was to ensure that something like this doesn't happen moving forward. Bear in mind, when President Trump was then candidate Trump running for office, he was the victim of an assassination plot in Butler, Pennsylvania. And granted, the gunman was neutralized, but at the same token, we had avoidance security. We also had another instance in Florida when President Trump was on the golf course, where there was another assassination attempt. And once again, there was a porous base which allowed an individual to bring a firearm, or I want to say a long gun, to the location. And fortunately, that person was also taken into custody. No one else was hurt. But we really have to drive down and revolutionize on what best fits the bill for the prevention of these types of incidents occurring, because a presidential assassination attempt is an extreme aberration as opposed to the norm, because we in the United States, we do a phenomenal job in protecting our elected officials, and this is an aberration.
Okay, Kenneth Katzman, I want to bring you in now. Thank you for staying with us from Washington, D.C. as all of these developments continue to move. We appreciate you being here. The president says that he is going to speak in about a half an hour's time. What do you expect we might hear from him?
Well, thank you again. I think he's mostly going to discuss his experiences there, what happened to him, why he was, what he heard, what he experienced. I don't think he's going to draw any broad conclusions. We don't know about this gunman. We don't know what the motive is. We don't know who it is. I would add, the early reports from the scene from reporters who were there say the gunman was killed. Now, I don't know whether that's been overturned by subsequent information and he's in custody and not killed, but early reports suggested he'd been shot and neutralized. But I expect he's going to, again, with his
Kenneth, I'm sorry to jump in on you. I just want to point our viewers to the fact that they're seeing the president leave at this point in time. They're seeing the presidential motorcade leave the hotel on its way, we assume, back to the White House, given that is where the president says he will be speaking in half an hour. I'm sorry for jumping in on you. Please continue.
No, that's no problem. I mean, obviously, the White House is much more secure. I don't think anybody expected the president to come back to this event. I think the only question was whether the White House Correspondents Association was going to try to continue it despite this after things settled down. I don't think anybody expected the president to come back. Remember, we don't know. There could be, this gunman could have been setting up some other gunman later on. There could be a plot. I mean, it has to be investigated. You can't just put the president of the United States and his cabinet. Half his cabinet was in this room, too. You can't put the entire U.S. government back in this situation until you've investigated exactly who this gunman is and what's going on. For all we know, he was a diversion for some other plot. For all we know, there were devices planted. Remember, this is an open hotel. This is a hotel, a commercial. Anybody could stay at this hotel. Anybody could be a guest at this hotel. It's not reserved for any type of person. This gunman, theoretically, and I'm just speculating, this gunman could have checked into this hotel 30 days ago and maybe gotten a gun into his room. Remember, there was a huge shooting in a Las Vegas hotel. We remember that somebody in Las Vegas 4 or 5 years ago got an armory up to his room and then started shooting people in Las Vegas. So this person could have been a guest at this hotel 45 days ago and stayed until this event. This event was known. The date was known. I believe Mr. Trump had announced many days ago, many weeks ago, that he was attending this event. So this has to be investigated. You can't just put the president back into a situation like this. So I suspect he's going to talk to that. He's going to talk to press freedom. He's going to talk to the need to continue to go on. He said he wanted the show to go on, how we need to proceed with our events and not be intimidated and not cave into gunmen and people like this. And I suspect those are the themes he's going to hammer on. on in 30 minutes or so.
Yeah. Kenneth, thank you for that. Stay with us, please. What you're looking at now are live pictures of people leaving that event. The U.S. president has just posted on his Truth Social account that law enforcement has requested that people leave the premises consistent with protocol. That's what Kenneth was talking about, so this investigation can take place. He says, which we will do immediately. I will be giving a press conference in 30 minutes from the White House press briefing room. The First Lady plus the Vice President and all cabinet members are in perfect condition. We will be speaking to you in a half an hour. He says, I have spoken with all the representatives in charge of the event, and we will be rescheduling within 30 days. Let's bring in Al Jazeera's senior producer, Chris Sheridan, who was in the ballroom at the event, and he's on the phone for us once again. So, Chris, tell us what's happening there where you are.
Well, right now I'm on the main concourse of the hotel. They've asked everyone to leave the ballroom now. Most people are leaving. As you heard, the president is now doing a press conference. So, and they're postponed this event. He says that this will be held at another time. So I am leaving with the hundreds of people here who are attending this event. And we're exiting now. There's a lot of security here, military, police, PSA. Obviously, they're investigating what happened now. And we should get more within the next 30 minutes from the president himself. But as I said, the event has officially concluded, postponed, if you will, to another time. And we're about to get some more information.
Okay, and of course, we will bring that to our viewers as soon as it happens. We will bring the address from the president to them live. In the meantime, let's bring back in Darren Porcher, who's a former NYPD lieutenant who is joining us from New York. Darren, I know that as an NYPD lieutenant, you obviously have a huge amount of experience dealing with securing many big events, including presidential visits. How difficult is it to secure a president? We were talking about this with Kenneth, sort of all the things that need to be investigated, but just in general, how difficult is it to, and now not just secure the president, but the president, his cabinet, multiple celebrities? This is a big ticket event.
It's very detailed, and I give you the example of the United Nations, or we have these presidential visits here in the city of New York quite frequently. We're pretty good at doing it because it happens, and it happens so frequently here. But in a place like Washington, D.C., I would think even more so. They would even be greater resource because a lot of the president's cabinet has their own security details that live within the D.C. metropolitan area. So their ability to access personnel would be something that would be somewhat seamless, coupled with the technological innovations. We're moving more towards marrying law enforcement into technological innovations more so now than ever so in the past. So doing the walkthroughs, you'll come through the, let's say a location like the Hilton Hotel, for example. You're going to have an advanced team that walks they're going to walk every inch of that hotel. They're going to know where all the standing cameras are. And in addition to that, they're going to have the ability to access those cameras in these hotels. Let me tell you, these hotels do a phenomenal job as it relates to surveillance of their property, because a lot of it evolves around, they just don't want to be sued but based on incidents that happen concerning guests in the hotel. They want to afford them an appropriate level of protection. So when you have a VIP such as the president coupled with his cabinet, it just magnifies 10 times over, because you not only have the video surveillance of the establishment, that being the Hilton Hotel, but the Secret Service as well as the Metropolitan Police Department are going to bring in their own semblance of resources that they can position to ensure that they can see any and everything that happens in this location. Every inch of the location is going to be covered. You're going to have dogs. You're going to have
Okay, Darren, I apologize for interrupting you. I appreciate all of this insight. It's very helpful. But I want to bring back in our senior producer, Chris Sheridan, who is at the hotel. And now we can see you finally, Chris. It's good to see you. Thank you for being with us through all of this. So please walk us through, if you could, what's happening where you are now.
Sure. I'm right outside the Capitol Hilton. You can see it behind me. You could see people leaving now. They've cleared the ballroom, so many of the people have left as a result of the postponement of this event. I want to point something out, too, which I said earlier. I was asked about security here.
Yeah.
It's important to note that over here behind me, that's Connecticut Avenue here, where people come in first. That's the first security checkpoint. But all you need there is your ticket. And then you can go inside this hotel. It's actually an active working hotel at the moment. So anyone, as long as you have a ticket, can get through that security checkpoint and into the hotel. Once you get down to the ballroom, then you have to actually go through the security check.
Right.
So medals, obviously, any guns or anything like that. So it's important to note that because this appeared to have occurred outside of the ballroom, inside the hotel. So it is possible for someone to hide something and get into this hotel. And as you can see behind me, as I pointed out, people are leaving. And of course, there's a lot of security here on Connecticut Avenue here at the hotel.
And just remind us, Chris, what it was like inside that ballroom when those shots were fired. Remind us what you heard. Remind us what the immediate aftermath, the instructions were. Walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, of course, at first, I know I could tell you myself, I didn't actually quite understand what was happening because, of course, even though we have a lot of mass shootings in this country, unless you experience one yourself, you don't actually think that it's happening to you. So when we heard the loud booms, I think everyone just kind of was shocked, sat for a second, and then immediately people started diving for the floor. I did as well. It was clear that it was gunshots. As I said, you could hear the powder, you could smell the powder. And now we've had confirmation that there were actually gunshots. There was no information immediately available. People were frozen for, I would say, a good 10 to 15 minutes. And then eventually the White House Correspondents Association president came out, or actually there was another member who came out and said that we will get you more information. And so there was a lot of confusion and surprise as to what was going on, especially since at an event like this where it is extremely secure. There's a heavy security presence, local police, military, Secret Service. So I think that was part of people's surprise and shock that something like this could happen at an event like this.
Of course. Chris, we're seeing now these live pictures of the police cordon that has been set up outside of the hotel, the huge police presence that is now there. Are you seeing a number of police officers, of law enforcement? Are they going into the hotel?
Yeah, there's a lot of military here now and police. So yes, it's heavily secured now. So it's quite extensive. Obviously, after something like this, they're going to have an investigation. But as I said, it's an active working hotel, so there's people coming in and out of here who are actually staying here. So obviously that will undoubtedly complicate things. But yes, there's a very, very heavy police presence here. Basically, all the streets around here have been shut down. And I have not actually left the security perimeter, so we're just standing outside the hotel right now, waiting to see what happens. But I guess we're going to get more information soon from the president himself.
Okay, that's Al Jazeera's senior producer, Chris Sheridan, who was inside that ballroom as these shots were fired at the White House Correspondents Association dinner where the president was removed. He's now outside that hotel giving us an update on what's happening there. Chris, thank you very much for being there and for your reporting. Let's bring Kenneth Katzman back in, who's a senior fellow at the Suffen Center and joins us from Washington, D.C. So as you're watching this all unfold, Kenneth, and there are obviously a number of questions about what happened into the lead up to this event, but help us understand what happens now. The president seems to be back at the White House giving a press conference, but obviously there's going to be a lot more than that going on behind the scenes.
Well, of course, and just for the purpose of your views, I'm an Iran expert. I usually am on the network talking about the Iran war, so it's a little bit of a departure for me this evening, so you'll have to excuse me. But
we appreciate you being here with us. Thank you.
The president, I think, his role is largely over. I mean, this has to be investigated. He's going to talk, as I said earlier, He's probably going to stress a number of themes about not being intimidated by violent events, not to stop speaking out, not to stop gathering, not to stop having these events. How freedom of the press is so important, and we stand up to political violence, and there needs to be an end to political violence. I'm just speculating that those are the themes he's going to hammer on, which he's hammered on after, as we noted, the previous assassination against him in Butler when he was running, and then the gunman at the golf course in Florida. But, the issue is this is a very, as we've been saying, this is a very big hotel. There's a lot of guests. A lot of them could have checked in many days ago. This could be part of a plot that's been planned a long time ago, or it could be a crazy guy who just happened to get through some checkpoints and got a gun near this ballroom. We don't know. We may not know for a long time. There's not going to be a heck of a lot to go on here. It's all going to depend on who this person that was apprehended or possibly killed is, what his background is. I'm sure they're going to talk to the president about what they know so far. They presumably know his name because they have him. They presumably know his identity. They can presumably know his social media habits and what he's been up to, who he is. The president might be briefed on that. That's all conceivable. But I think the president's role at this point is to calm the nation down and to insist that the show go on at a later date, obviously, once this is investigated. It's very possible that the Washington Hilton will not be able to host this event anymore. It's entirely conceivable that because the president usually shows up to this event, now Mr. Trump, this is his first time at this event, but usually the presidents show up every year. Mm-hmm. And so it's totally conceivable that this event may have to be moved in the future to some more easily secured location where there are not guests who can check into the hotel, 2 weeks ago and just hide.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's what this guy was, but that's certainly conceivable, right?
There's a lot that's going to be looked at in the aftermath of this, for sure. Kenneth Katzman, Senior Fellow at the Souffin Center. Once again, thank you so much for being here with us through this breaking news. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I want to give our viewers an update on what we're talking about here. The U.S. president was removed from the White House Correspondents Association dinner after shots were fired just a couple of hours ago. The president is fine. You are looking at a live shot of the podium in the press briefing room at the White House, where we are expecting an update from the U.S. president in a few minutes. He had hoped, or said he was optimistic, that the program for the White House Correspondents Dinner would go on, but law enforcement has asked everybody to leave the ballroom where that event was taking place. The president has said he will be speaking to the nation in a few minutes' time. This is video of the moment that those shots were fired. It was initially reported that loud noises were heard in the ballroom. We weren't entirely clear at the beginning on what that was, but you can see just how quickly that security teams come to the president, the First Lady, and that's the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt sitting there beside them. They cover the president, move the head table off the stage, and then you can see about half a dozen gunmen there who jump over the head table and then have their guns trained on the room. We're going to listen now to another angle of this security video.
It is now a crime scene. Secret Service is in custody, has the person in custody. Everything's okay. One shooter, we know so far. Thank you.
Let's bring Darren Porcher back in. He's a former NYPD lieutenant, and he is joining us from New York. So, Darren, I'm not sure if you can see all the video that we're seeing or if you have seen it, but what we do see is quite a swift response from a large number of security guards that quickly envelope the president and move him off the head table. This is very similar. We saw this in Butler, Pennsylvania, how quickly the Secret Service was on the president to move him away. When you have a situation like this, when you have an event like this that has this much security going into it, there is obviously still this huge security presence that is around the president during the event. Are there tiers to this? Because this president, and by that I mean because this president has had security issues in the past, will there be heightened security around him, or do presidents just always have maximum security all the time?
An elected president, or I should say a sitting president, has security around them at all times. So it's not as if we up the ante, we give you more personnel at some points than others. It's really dependent upon what the venue is. So, of course, if you have a larger scaled venue, you're going to need more personnel. But at the same token, the threat assessment, a threat assessment is conducted prior to the actual event going off. And so when we look at the area where the alleged shooter was located, you already had a security matrix that was responsible for that area. You have a series of zones that are responsible for providing security for the president. So that was one zone in particular, meaning that hallway. So you had an assemblance of personnel that were armed with long guns and sidearms that were ensuring that that area was contained and there was no spillover. And it worked in accordance to scale, in that this was not something that manifested from the hallway onto the stage area, which would have subsequently injured or killed the president or any of the other individuals that would have been in that ballroom. So people work in tandem. When I say people, meaning law enforcement teams work in tandem, and we have great relationships with the brother and sister law enforcement agencies, whether it's the city, I should say local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies work together in unison, and there's a planning mechanism that goes in play before they have these types of events. And as I mentioned in the earlier part, there's a walkthrough which establishes the choke points and things to that effect. So it seems as if security went off without a hitch from a containment perspective, where they neutralized the shooter. But the question is, how did a firearm enter the location? And bear in mind, this is a civilian location, that being the Hilton Hotel. So as one of your earlier guests made mention, that they were still conducting business within that hotel, such as guests checking in, checking out, things to that effect. So I think that's the lens that they're going to have to look through to establish how and when a firearm was able to be transported into the location without the individual being detected up to the point where he engaged the shots.
Right. Okay. Darren Porcher, stay with us. Thank you very much. Well, we bring in Al Jazeera's senior producer, Chris Sheridan, who was in the ballroom at the event, and he joins us now live from outside the hotel. Chris, tell us what you're seeing there now. There is obviously a huge police cordon underway. We've been seeing people leaving the hotel, leaving the ballroom. What's your understanding of what's going on there now?
Yeah, I'm right out front right now, and on Connecticut Avenue, which is the main street in front of the hotel. And as you can see, I know the quality is probably not great, but you can see there is a heavy police presence here, and people are leaving. This is an event that has up to 2,000 people, so people are still leaving right now. And of course, since it's a group of journalists, there's a lot of journalists here. They're obviously reporting on what's going on, but there is a very heavy police presence, and they are not allowing anyone to stand around outside the hotel right now once you leave. So if I have to move, I apologize, but they're trying to clear the area at the moment. But sorry about that.
That's okay.
People are yelling behind me, telling us to move.
Okay, Chris, we'll let you go. We'll let you move, get somewhere else, and we'll touch back in with you in a little bit so we can get some more of your insight on what happened throughout the evening. But in the meantime, we'll go back to Darren Porcher, who's a former NYPD lieutenant, and he's joining us from New York. Darren, as this goes through the investigation, or as this begins the early investigation, you mentioned, and we were talking about earlier, that the way that this is set up in zones of security, the containment actually probably did work the way that it was supposed to. But even still, what will the investigation, besides just how the gun got in the building and who brought the gun into the building, where does this investigation go from here?
They're going to conduct the backwards investigation that starts when the gunman actually engaged his firearm